Welcome to the Locals Only Lounge. I'm your host, Andrew Dyer. Once again, coming at you. If you are joining us from the previous podcast that ended, about 10 minutes ago, um, I will reintroduce the panel of esteemed guests we have on the show. First, John Cross. John, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here in the lounge and have some good discussion tonight.
John also produces this show, not just this show, the other show, the other show, and the other show. John produces about 4 shows on Bum TV, and I'm glad that you're on screen and on mic for the shows this season because I feel like people need to know, understand, and appreciate all you do behind the scenes. So thank you, sir.
Thank you
Dylan
for the kind
Wilson,
words.
of course. Dylan Wilson. Uh, you are also joining us again. Um, Tell us about your show.
So I am working on 2 shows with fellow local Mr. Max Bristow, Bums Breakdown, which is a weekly recorded show where we just kind of go into some of the more tactical and on-field kind of discussion about the game itself. So if that's what you are here for, then that is the show for you. And then we also have Locals Last Call, which we're still kind of just getting off the ground, but that's going to be our kind of like post-game recap show. We have some ideas for where that might go. Maybe do it live once or twice. We'll see what happens, but keep your eyes on Bum TV and the Locals feed for seeing what's coming up with that.
Awesome. And last but not least, Eric Wilke. Eric, what's up, man?
No, not much. I feel like it is kind of waste though, because I don't have a podcast or I don't produce anything. But I'm here and ready to talk about whatever. So
you know what? You're a local member 96. You are in the original 100. I cannot say that. I think I'm like 211 or 12, or I'm post 200, man. Like you've got me beat by a century. So you put that up there proudly. We're glad to have you. So the lounge, it's a little more freewheeling and open forum than what we do on the Loyal Locals podcast, where we always have a bunch of like specific supporter information to put out about merch and matches and events and all this stuff. But we've already done all that. We don't need to do it again. We don't need to rehash it. Instead, we like to get into the sidetrack. This is where the sidetracks lead. They lead right here. And I think we were starting to talk a little bit about supporter groups and rivalries and the experience this week. Well, let me back up just a little bit, and I hate to rehash this or even acknowledge them for a second week in a row, but we did have this very strange, surreal experience with a supporter group from somewhere in Michigan. They were very cantankerous. There's about 5 of them from what I can count. There's about 5 people in the supporter group. They just came up. They just got promoted from the AYSO ranks, moved up the soccer pyramid and find themselves in USL. They think they've already won the championship, or I don't know. I don't know it because I don't think about it. But we went through that last week with them. Very strange. But another supporter group who we actually know very well, the Banditos from Phoenix. We've had kind of a history with them. They've come over to Torreira Stadium in San Diego and kind of been not cool. There's just been kind of some bad, blood, kind of a rival. They used to be like the top of the Western Conference, like I guess a long time ago, because it's been a while. It's been a while, but they're not anymore. They're actually at the bottom. If you check the standings, if you check the standings from last year, they're at the bottom.
Did they make the playoffs last year?
They didn't make the playoffs last year. They haven't beat San Diego Loyal in a long time. Like I think the last 3 matches. Anyway, a lot of stuff with Phoenix. Dylan, I wanted to ask you about this because you kind of touched on it in the first show, but we are going to Phoenix April 1st. So they were just here, and we have an away game in Phoenix April 1st. I'm going. This is my first time, like I said earlier, this is my first time ever going to Phoenix by choice. Like I've gone there for work before. I've had to fly there to a layover because you fly Southwest, like you go to Phoenix, then you go on to your next place. So I've been through their airport several times. So I've been to Phoenix, never by choice. April 1st, I will be there intentionally. And it's my first time going into their stadium to deal with their fans on their turf. What should I expect? What was your experience, and what should people visiting Phoenix expect?
Oh, it's funny that you say it'll be your first time there by choice, and it happens to be April Fool's Day. It almost feels like a joke, right?
I am a fool. Going to
yeah.
Phoenix, I mean, you are a fool to go to Phoenix anytime, let alone in April.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it sounds like Andrew's out for blood tonight, and I think going to Phoenix, that's the right mentality. Yeah, I went last year, and this past season, the 2022 season was, I've been following the club since it started, but this past year was the first year that I really like threw my whole self into it and threw myself into the locals. And so I made the away trip to Phoenix. I had a place to stay. I lucked out on that, so I flew out the morning of the game, and I went out and I met up. Jason had organized a pregame nearby to the stadium. And we met up with the crew, and I remember Adrian was there, and there was a couple other people who I know who I've seen on many away trips, and their names are escaping me, and I'm sorry, but it was a lot of fun. We took my girlfriend was with me, and we took her dad and her sister to their very first soccer game, which was wild for them to be in the away section. I almost feel a little bad, but not really because we won. But yeah, it was. I mean, like I said in the regular pod, the tension, you could cut it with a knife. There were people who were not happy with how loud we were being and how much chanting we were doing. I was with Weston as well, and Weston loves to support his team and sing along too. And I remember specifically there were a couple guys who, like I said, like they were getting up a little close and screaming at us, and it really felt like a real like rivalry atmosphere. Like I don't want to. Sorry, go ahead.
Help me understand. So I know in Torero, so we have 109, which is where we are, and then a few sections to our left is where the away supporters sit. Where did Phoenix put y'all in relation to where their supporters? Because their supporters group also sit right behind one of the goals. So
Right.
where were y'all in relation to them?
So it might change because they've moved the stadium, but it also probably won't because I think it's the same stadium. Right.
Yeah.
So the Banditos were on, I don't know what cardinal direction. They were on one end under the big scoreboard, and we were in the corner at the other end, not behind the goal, but like on the corner of the sideline, up in the second deck. It's one deck, but there was like one row of seats, like a walking aisle, and then a second section of seats, and we were in the corner of that second section that they just gave to us. So we were out of the way, so to speak, and nowhere close to the Banditos at all.
Okay, so the negative experiences you're talking about, this wasn't even their supporters group. This was like,
yeah, no, this was your average Joe fan who, but presumably is aware that the away fans usually sit in this area, because I'm pretty sure this is just like the designated away section. But to be clear, I'm not saying this was a negative experience. It was just an adrenaline pumping one. Had I been by myself talking the level of shit that I was talking, it might have been a negative experience. But being in the larger group, safety in numbers, yeah, we definitely were not holding back. We were letting them have it, especially after that Guido goal. Lots of singing, lots of cheering.
But take us back, because I don't know if everybody listening knows the circumstances of that goal or this game. What was happening and what happened to make it so dramatic?
So this, we're out in the desert. This is our first time playing Phoenix that season. We scored 2 goals in the first half. Evan Conway and Kyle Vassell both opened their accounts for the season, both scoring fantastic goals. And then early in the second half, Phoenix scored 2 goals, and it really felt like the momentum had shifted to their side. I was worried, to be honest with you. And then around the 70th minute, Guido goes on a run down the right channel. He got a lucky bounce where the ball came back to him, but he, whatever, he ends up carrying it. Among makes a great run to take the defender away, and Guido strides into the box and, excuse my language, absolutely fucking smashes it across the goal into the top left corner from the angle we were at in the away section on the other side of the field, literally right behind the ball, perfect angle. The moment he hit it, there was no doubt in my mind that it was going in. And he runs over and celebrates in front of the Chinga Tumaga sign, doing his little dance. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong, trophies and shit, like, whatever, that's awesome. But that is what sports are all about for me. Like, that moment right there, I was so amped. I think you can even see me on the broadcast running down the aisle, high-fiving everybody. Like, I've never been more amped in my life than that moment, probably.
It was definitely one of the, like, I mean, that is like the Mount Rushmore of loyal moments, certainly of last season, maybe of like the franchise so far, was that goal and the everything behind it, right? The drama with Andrew Carlton and the sign and the taunting from their fans and Guido shutting them up in such a dramatic fashion. Eric, how did you feel when you saw that goal go in?
Well, what I remember was that Phoenix had just equalized it, like a couple minutes before, and they still had smoke hanging in the stadium from
You're right.
the
It was
Banditos.
that quick after.
And that's what made it even more spectacular, just to see Guido go on that run and just right in front of them and just shut them up like immediately. It was just injected in my veins. It was amazing.
The way this, you know how sometimes, like, in a huge game, when the away team scores in whatever sport, and like the stadium goes from raucous to silent, and it's just like you could hear a pin drop all of a sudden, and you can feel the temperature change. Like, it was like that. They went from loud to I don't hear a fucking thing, like, very quickly.
So, going from that, and I think this kind of speaks to like everybody's like attitude toward Phoenix, at least from the locals and loyal perspective, right? We don't really have a good like close rival like Orange County. Like, they're a rival, they're right up the road, but like there's something artificial about like calling it a rivalry just because I feel like we're kind of too close to be good rivals. Like, when Galaxy were trying to poach their stadium, like I feel like a lot of us kind of like stood up for them, and that's messed up. And like, I like their stadium. I think we all kind of like their stadium, and we have these bus trips up there,
It's
and
one
it's
of our
always
best home matches.
It's Torero
Yeah.
North.
Yeah, so I don't feel the same like animosity to like Orange County or any of the other California teams, even Oakland, who we can't beat for some reason. I don't even have that. Their fans came out and hung out with us before the match, and we had a lot of fun. So I don't know. It's not like that with Phoenix. There was a game, I want to say it was 2021, where we had like invited them to the parking lot, and like the fans were on like a bus, and the bus came down, and they were just they came down to right close to where the parking lot was, and like we thought they were going to get off and come and join us, and they never did. They chose to stay on their bus. And yeah, it was very much like, what's that about? So they don't want to be cool. Like, we don't want to be cool either. We don't have to be. So I feel like that is part of the whole like rivalry, like where the fans don't like the team, the players on the field, they don't like each other either. We had the incident in 2020 with Colin Martin and the slur. And I think there were actually, was there more than one slur that year? There might have been.
It was LA Galaxy 2 as well.
Oh, that was Galaxy 2. Okay.
That was towards Elijah, and then Junior Fleming for Phoenix was one with Colin.
You know what?
And
I
that
do.
was
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That was
Eric,
a game
go ahead.
we were beating them 3-0. We were whooping their ass in Phoenix, and it really pissed me off that someone had to do that.
I think the San Diego players definitely feel the rivalry, but I do wonder in terms of like in the locker room for Phoenix, like their team has pretty much entirely changed since that happened. And don't get me wrong, some of their new players, Danny Trejo, probably have their own reasons for disliking San Diego and their fans. But I think that, and what I'm trying to say is, I think that this is the reason that Phoenix is, like, for me, the biggest rivalry is that the rivalry is not just on the field now. It is in the stands. Like, it is the fans who don't really like each other. Like, let's not mince words,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
and that's
think you're
why
absolutely right.
it was very fun. It was almost disappointing that their supporters group couldn't be bothered to come and support their team in San Diego when it's such a short drive. It kind of makes me question whether or not they really support that club. Like, if you support your club, then I think you make whatever effort you can make to go and support them in a match that is a day trip for you. Whether it's Saturday or Sunday, it's a day trip. You call yourself a supporter, you call yourself a supporter group, but you don't even bother to make the trip to support your club. Like, oh wow, like the away section was pathetic. There was a smattering of people. The people that came were pathetic. They were complaining on social media or some. I should be very careful here because I don't know that they're complaining on social media. People who were in the vicinity of them posted on social media that they were complaining, just to be clear. But the complaints were about a chant that we deploy against every team we play against. You just swap out the name of the city and boom, that's in the chant. They were complaining about that. And it was just really kind of disappointing because I associate Phoenix with traveling well, with coming out and supporting their club. Maybe the club has lost a lot of support. I know it's been a long time since they've been relevant or won anything or been a winner or made the playoffs or like beat Loyal. So maybe I don't know what's going on, and I'll throw it up to whoever wants to take it. What's going on with the level of support for Phoenix? Are people even going to show up on April 1st?
I'll start.
Yeah, go for it,
I
John.
fully expect people to show up. I do think it is difference between a home game and away game. And, listening to you speak about how I didn't travel and thinking about how I'm not traveling to Phoenix to support my team. Thanks there, Andrew. But
this is a group. This is a holistic thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't go last year,
Right.
but like the supporters group, there is an effort
Sure.
and a organized thing to kind of get to the away game.
I will say there were
think-
definitely more people from San Diego at Phoenix last year than there were at Phoenix or from Phoenix at San Diego this year.
Right. And I think in general with any group of fans, supporter group, whatever, you find out a lot about who you are when things don't go well. Right? So do people still travel when your team is not doing well, or they only travel when you do well? Because that one time they took the bus, I mean, they had a huge section. I'd love that, actually. I loved having an opposing group in there. I think it just creates a better atmosphere in the stadium. But then this time it didn't seem, maybe there were some supporters there, but it didn't feel like supporters. It felt more like season ticket holders maybe who came out to watch and were going to enjoy their team. And I think they were a little shocked by
I don't think they enjoyed their
how
team either.
Yeah, well,
I wouldn't have either.
But I think it does say a lot about just anyone's level of support. It's easy to support when everything's going well. When things aren't going well, how do you do? And one of the things I think back about is something we brought up in the Loyal Locals podcast earlier tonight. That 5-1 drubbing we got by the LA Galaxy 2, and just talking about Koke's response, and Koke talking about in the interview just how the whole section was there the whole game and kept cheering and chanting the entire match, even though the outcome was decided. It was not. It would take a miracle for that to change, but people didn't leave. People stayed, and I think that that is a big difference. Are you only there when you're winning, or are you there for your team always?
I want to piggyback on what you just said there about the 5-0 against LA Galaxy, because that was one of the few games I was not at last season, because I was traveling visiting some friends up in the Pacific Northwest. But I think that game is like kind of what you're alluding to. It's like a defining moment for supporters, not only as a supporters group, but loyal fans as a club. Like, how do you respond to adversity? And yeah, we didn't make the playoffs in 2020, but there was also nobody in the stands. So fans of Loyal, granted, we haven't, maybe gone as far as we wanted, but I don't think we've had to deal with too much adversity in terms of like really struggling on the field. But
true.
that 5-0 game, like some of the strongest bonds are forged in struggle, and I feel as though that game was like a real, I don't want to say turning point, but like it was a marker put down for loyal fans, but especially the SG, of just like, look, we've got your back, this team, and we want you to do well. We prefer you do well, but like I felt like that, to your point, John, I guess I'm kind of just reiterating you here. Like, I really felt like that was a statement, and I was super proud to be a San Diego Loyal fan, even though we lost 5-0.
Yeah, I remember that game well. But I remember, there was just like, we kind of, at first it was like we were trying to will them to like get back in the game, but you could see that they were giving it everything they had. It just was not our day at all. But we just kept going. And after it's 3-0, it's like, you already know, like, we're just not coming back. It's just not going to happen. But that's what we're there to do, right? So that's what we did. And I lost my voice then, just like I almost always do. So that's what being a supporter is all about, right? We're not casual fans. We're not there to just sit there and watch the beautiful, passing and scoring goals. We're there to help propel them to do their best, right? And that's what being a supporter is all about, in my opinion.
But I think the real test for us will be if we get 4 or 5 of those in a row. When that happens in a season, because it's bound to happen at some point. Nate Miller leaves and takes a better job, and we get a new coach, and that coach just
Better
isn't the
job.
same, and we don't.
Don't you put that evil on me, John Cross? Don't you put that evil on me?
What are you saying, John?
This is America's finest city.
Can't you just enjoy the good times?
I'm telling you,
I
man,
do
this
enjoy
guy's
the
like
good
an
times.
atmospheric river.
Oh
in this
no, I'm just
podcast.
giving you a hard time, John. I'm just giving you a hard time, John.
Okay, so this rivalry, like, to me, this is one of the, and not just this rivalry, but even like the smack talking with the other clubs or the other SGs, like I like to be super ridiculous, right? Like, we haven't allowed a goal in 2 games, therefore we're not going to allow a goal all year, right? Which is ridiculous, but to me it's fun to say that, right? Because you can't prove me wrong yet, right? Mathematically it pencils out, right? So like, I like to be extreme and talk at a ridiculous like level there. And even when we're dealing with other teams or dealing with other fans, like, it's the same thing. Like, to me, like, that's what's fun about like being in a supporter group, is just like you don't have to be like a realistic sports analyst. Like, I don't have to be like,
Right.
yeah, well, they have a really robust attack, and I don't have to be like that. I can say, hey, our crest is San Diego. Our crest is Loyal, and therefore it's impenetrable. Like, nothing can. I can be ridiculous, right? And this brings up something that John and I had talked about before the match, and that's like, everybody kind of gets into it, like, because you're a soccer fan. I would think that that's what kind of draws you to the match, or and then when you get to the match, maybe you see what happens in the supporter section, and that draws you to the supporter section. So and this is something that John was talking about, and so I'm going to ask John first. What is it about supporter group and being involved with the supporter group, other than the soccer on the field, other than cheering for the team? What is it about the SG that that makes you want to kind of commit all this time that you do? And I mean, I know you're not getting paid to do these podcasts and to produce these shows, but what is it that makes you want to do it? What's your favorite part of the outside the field stuff?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's so hard to pin down one specific thing. I'm going to throw out a few and just kind of as they come to me stream of consciousness, because I kind of think of it in terms of how the season progresses. So during the off season, as we get ready, one of my favorite things is the schedule drop, because then it's real for me. Before it's talking and maybe we have players, but until I can see who's our home opener, when do we go up to Orange County, when do we have all our different matches, and are there going to be away trips I can make? To me, one of the biggest things that gets me really excited in terms of the team side of it is the schedule drop. I like the kit release. I like other things, but when that schedule comes out, then and maybe it's because I do the podcast as well. So now it's planning. Right now I'm like, okay, now I can really start figuring out what I want to do. I love, even though I haven't been able to make many of them since the pandemic, but just in general with other groups, whether it be the San Diego Outlaws or something, going on away trips. I mean, I love the away days kind of stuff. I think the friendships you make and the experiences you just have so much more time you're spending with people. I really enjoy those. And just in general, and I think we have this very well in our supporter group, but just the camaraderie between everybody. We have all ages and genders in our group. I mean, just a huge mix of people. And I enjoy sharing the soccer experience with everybody else. As I joke with people a lot, I was here, going to soccer games as a kid before the San Diego Soccers, when they were the San Diego Jaws. I remember my dad taking me to games, going to games as a kid to see the outdoor Soccers. And then everything was gone from an outdoor perspective. Tried to get involved with the Flash and the Gauchos and just couldn't really get into it. Got excited a little bit with the NC Battalion when they started up, and then actually started doing some work with them, doing some of their live stream broadcasts, but was really wanting a team that I could root for, because I never picked up a Premier League team or anybody else. I wanted my San Diego team. I've been holding out for 35 years, and now I finally have it. And frankly, I love just about everything. I can't get enough. I love doing this podcast. I love talking with people and finding out their stories, and finally getting to do something that I've seen other people enjoy in their own city with their own teams for most of my life. I finally get to do that now. And maybe that is my most favorite thing, that I finally get to do this. It makes me feel like a kid. I'm older than most people in the supporter group, and it makes me feel like, a kid again. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. What about y'all? I don't know. Eric, you want to take it? What about you?
Sure. So I can definitely appreciate where John's coming from with the whole father-son aspect. As most of you probably know, my son Rohan is usually my little sidekick next to me there in 109, waving flags and everything like that. But I just really enjoy being able to have that experience with him, and it's something that we do together. So that's really special to me. Like John said, the camaraderie with everyone is also really, really nice. I haven't had any issues with anybody there. I've never seen any issues between people, so it's just kind of unheard of sporting events from my experience in other sports, really. I kind of like just the history of it, being, at the beginning of this club, and we were here when it started, right? So I'll always have that that's why I get as much memorabilia and stuff like that, and I have it in my closet, and I just try to collect stuff from every season just so I have that I can like pass on later, because I want to have all the history of this club, and then like I try to soak it all up. And I'm not from San Diego originally, but I've been here quite a while. I've had 3 of my 4 children were born in San Diego, so I feel like I'm close to a San Diegan as you can get without being born here. So I really, like John, feel like this is my club too.
Well, half of being a San Diegan is not liking people from Arizona, so you're doing
I've
pretty
got that
good.
in spades. I've got that in spades. So yeah, but yeah, I just really feel like this is something special, and like being able to meet like Hall of Famers that are a part of your club. I mean, come on, Shannon McMillan, Landon Donovan. I mean, it's amazing. And I've gotten to know Ricardo a little bit over the past couple of seasons. What a stand-up guy. Warren, who helped start the club and now is starting New Orleans team in the championship. Got to speak with him and meet him. So just like the access that you have to the players, like I remember like so many of these guys from the first season, the first road trip to Orange County. And we waited, Rohan and I waited at the team bus after everybody else was gone, and we talked to everybody. It was just like those kinds of memories that I'll have. It's just, I don't know if that's specifically part of the supporters group, but that's kind of how much I am invested in this club, right? So, I don't know.
No, those are all great reasons. Dylan, what about you? How did you get into supporter stuff, and what is it you like about it other than the soccer on the field?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, John and Eric, both, I really appreciated just hearing both of your stories. I mean, I've met both of you guys plenty of times and talked with both of you, but I learned something new about both of you just now, and I really appreciated that. I am also, like Eric, not from San Diego originally. I am from Oakland, and so Californian, but not SoCal. I came here in 2019. My parents retired, and I helped them move down here. And I wasn't doing much with my life, and I liked it here, so I stayed. And so I have been a soccer fan for a long time, but have never really had like a truly local club. I was at school in Flagstaff, Arizona for 5 years. So if hating people from Arizona is what qualifies you as a San Diegan, there might not be anyone more qualified than me. Having
Is
spent
that
5 years.
NAU?
Yeah, Northern Arizona, go Jacks, the LJs. But yeah, so we didn't have any pro sports up there, let alone soccer.
I mean,
And I was
Flagstaff is very barely Arizona. Come on, man. You can't.
Yeah, no, it's its own thing. Like Flagstaff is its own thing, no doubt about it. But I like to tell people, because I think when people find that I spent time in Arizona, they're surprised. But anyway, I'm getting way off track here. But the point is, growing up in Oakland, pre-roots, and going to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I was never going to root for a team from Phoenix, I never really had like a local team. So when I got here to San Diego, I looked into it and found that 1904 was a thing, but that obviously, whatever, we don't need to dive into that. But once I found out about Loyal and what they were doing, both on and off the field, I was pretty sold. And once I started going to games, it was pretty easy for me to get into it. And as far as the supporters group, the thing I love most is what drew me in is the community. Like I love sports. I grew up on baseball as an Oakland A's fan. So I have rooting for a struggling team, like that's part of my DNA. Or rather, not struggling team necessarily, but rooting for a team for things beyond the success is like part of my sports. Just kind of the lens through which I see sports. And so don't get me wrong, I love the way that Loyal play, and I love that we win games and stuff, but I've always looked for the things beyond the on the field play. And so, when I got to start getting more involved with the locals, and I got to know everyone and what a good person everybody involved was, it was just so easy for me to start giving more and more of my time to this. And It's gotten to the point where, I had a conversation with my girlfriend actually last week where I was like, look, I'm going to be giving a lot more of my time to this podcast and stuff. And like, I'm going to be much busier. And she, was super supportive. Shout out to my girlfriend, Gabby. She's been super supportive of me doing all this.
Well, that's clutch, because let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. She deserves the shout out and more. But yeah, it's the community. And to the father-son point we've been making, I kind of actually am going the other way. My dad brought me up in baseball, and to his credit, we still have that. But I've got my dad into soccer, and he's a season ticket holder now. I sit with him in 108, right there at the top. Him and my girlfriend and my roommate, my dad, and some other friends, we all sit up there, and it's great. If you ever need a break to sit from 109, I bounce back and forth usually. But yeah, so it's just the community for me. I'm sorry, I've gone super roundabout here, but this is the lounge, right? We're getting to know each other.
This is what this is. This is where the sidetrack. This is like where the sidetrack goes. We're all about sidetracks. It's funny because So I am also not from San Diego, funnily enough, or not. But I've been here since 2009, which is kind of a long time for me, at least. And I was not a soccer fan. I did not grow up with soccer. Didn't give it any thought. It was all about basketball for me, and like the Spurs, which was like my hometown team. And they, when I got out here, I didn't care about the Chargers. I grew up as a Cowboys fan, and by 2012, 2013, I was out on the NFL anyway. Baseball, always liked the Padres. Like I visited San Diego when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, and went to a Padres game at Jack Murphy Stadium in 1991. And so like San Antonio doesn't have a baseball team. So like the Padres were like my team. Like I didn't know anything about them. Like I liked Nolan Ryan, and I liked the Padres. It was like my baseball thing. But my kids started playing soccer, and that got me more into watching soccer because I needed to know like what was going on and understand the game a little bit. But for the SG, it's like I went to a game in San Antonio in 2015 when they were the Scorpions, and they were playing in the NASL. And I saw the supporters group do their march, and there were people in the march with drums, and I was like, oh no shit, you can play drums as an adult and do that. Like, because I used to be in band, and I played drums. One in my senior year, I was I played bass drum and I played snare drum in concert season. So it was super fun. But it's like when you leave high school, or if you leave college or whatever, like you don't go and like be part of like a marching band as an adult. Like in the real world, it's just not a thing. So seeing like the supporter group, and they had drummers, I was like, oh, that's like awesome. If I lived in San Antonio still, like that's what I would want to do. And so when the Loyal started and the supporters group started, I was like, oh, here's my chance. I can play a fucking drum now. And that's what I do, and that's what I did. I went out and I actually just bought a drum, and that's how I got into it. But it's always been about like kind of being part of something. I think it's a great way to like make friends and meet people you wouldn't normally meet in your normal life. As I'm sure you all know, it is kind of difficult to make new friends as an adult. And when I was in the Navy, and when I left the military, and all my friends slowly and steadily PCS'd out of San Diego, they all left. For a long time I was just kind of left like, well, damn, everybody I know is gone. They were all in the military. And it was it's kind of difficult. And then, I think it's a great way to I think everybody's talked about community, and we saw like somebody like Nick Duffy, who moved here from New Zealand, and kind of got here and already had like a group of friends because he was a soccer fan and wanted to be part of the SG. So I think it's a great way to like have that community and find people. Um, but another rambling roundabout way, other than community, I'm with John. The away trips, the away bus trips, going to Vegas and going to Orange County and going to LA, in the group, and like wearing your colors and wearing your scarf and chanting and trying to be louder than the other SG, and trying to annoy the home fans in your vicinity. Just the tribal aspect of it is super fun.
Well, especially when the away team's ticket reps make it super easy to annoy home fans by putting them in the row directly in front of you. Cough, cough.
That was not a great match for me personally.
No. That was not an ideal situation.
They moved. They did move eventually.
But that was poor on the home team's ticketing. That should have never happened.
The only people who bear blame for that are the ticketing people for OC. That, like, we don't bear blame, the fans don't bear blame. Like, the only people who bear blame are the ones who orchestrated that.
I probably bear a little bit of blame.
Okay, maybe Andrew's.
I wasn't super cool to those poor people who had no idea what was coming whenever these people rolled into their state. Yeah, well, it happens.
Okay, well, maybe just a little bit then.
All right, John. Let me ask you. Is there anything else we need to get to in the lounge?
There's nothing I don't think we had planned. We're pretty open at the moment. I have something to bring up just as an aside if you don't have anything. Is that free to go?
The floor is yours, sir.
All right. Only because we've had this conversation before, a little bit in Discord, and there were some concerns about the San Diego "We Are Here" chant. I'm curious to get everybody's take, and I mean I can go maybe and give mine first, because I know was it last year? I guess it was last year, or maybe it was the year before. I don't remember, but we generally are pretty clean with our chants, and I am always a big proponent of you sing for your team. To me, I want all my energy to go towards the team and not towards the ref, not towards the opposing supporter groups. And I think this one brings up an interesting conversation because I've had people ask me, like, where do you stand? Because, we have the F word in there, and
you mean fuck?
It's not all about our team. What's that?
You mean fuck?
I do mean. Thank you.
If you're wondering where I stand.
So I remember seeing some of the conversations in Discord, and I remember having some conversations with people, and for me, I'm kind of on the fence about that one because two of the stanzas are really about us. Just that last one is an acknowledgement towards the other team. And while I generally am not a huge fan of anything that goes towards the other team, this is one I think where I kind of straddle the line a little bit. And especially in terms of using the word fuck, I am absolutely against anything that's abusive, kind of directed at people in an abusive way. And in some of my conversations I've had with people, and maybe it's my father being English and having a different relationship with the word fuck than maybe most Americans. And in this case, it's used really for emphasis. And I think sometimes when people hear it, it's jarring because they don't normally hear it from our section. And in having some conversations, like it's not really, to me, it's not really attacking any other group. It's like we don't hear anything over there. Like step up your game.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
it reminds me of like so when I grew up in Texas, and I spent a lot of time in West Texas, and when I was like in middle school, I'd go to these school dances. One, because I was lame, and two, because what else was I going to do? I was 13. I couldn't drink. I hadn't discovered I was not at the place in my life to have anything better to do. But they would always, at every dance, they would always play the Cotton Eye Joe, right? Which I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with Cotton Eye Joe. There's no lyrics to Cotton Eye Joe, except for the one part it's like a line dance type of thing, but there's one part where everybody yells bullshit, right? It's the only lyric in the song, but everybody dancing yells bullshit. And it's like the funnest thing in this group to just yell the word bullshit. And so, like, if you know what a public school is like, if a bunch of kids are yelling cuss words, that's bad. But like, except when the Cotton Eye Joe was on, like, they didn't care. Like, nobody ever got in trouble for yelling bullshit at the school dance during Cotton Eye Joe. That's just because it was like understood that was like the thing or part of the thing. And I can't really explain it any better than that, is that everybody would yell it. Everybody would have fun doing it. And none of the authority figures, the teachers and whoever was chaperoning, ever made a big deal about it. And these were like it was a very large dance. So I kind of look at the chant like that, in that, yeah, you know, normally we're not just talking like that or having it in the chant, but in that one chant, once or twice a game, or maybe 3 times with Phoenix, you do it, and there's no harm. We're not. It's not a personal attack, like John said. It's used for emphasis. But the thing is, it's like supporters groups. The supporters group is not. It's not a kindergarten. You go to football matches in Europe or in South America, other places in Latin America, and these are not daycares. These are not places where things are clean, that things are orderly, or that they're not extremely passionate, confrontational, or there's a lot worse things that happen in football stadiums in other parts of the world. So I don't think that it's necessarily something we should strive to do more of. I don't think we should have more chants where we yell the F word. But this chant, it's a really good chant. It's a catchy chant. It sounds good. It sounds unlike every other chant we do. It has a different little bit of a different cadence. It has a different melody. It's different from all the other ones, and it's got a little bit of a zing, a little bit of spice, a little bit of flair, and I think that it's not a big deal.
I personally don't have much to add what you guys have said. I totally can understand the points about people with kids or wanting to be a little more sensitive about language. I personally came up in a household where language wasn't a huge deal. My parents tried to prevent us from using spicy language, I'll call it. But by the time I was 10, my mom's Sicilian. Like, it was just a part of life. She admitted to me that she knew I got it from her. So I personally am not very sensitive to it. But I also acknowledge that, like, I can really only speak to my experience. I think it works great in the chant. I think that if you try to change it to really anything else, it weakens the chant. But I also acknowledge that if you are trying to, foster respectful language with young minds, the chant is more fun this way is not necessarily a great argument.
Sure.
But
here,
you
but
know,
you gotta respect kids, man. Kids
yeah,
aren't dumb. Like,
kids are smart, and I think that having a conversation. But let me preface this by again saying I don't have children, but
well, you don't have to
I,
have children to opine
but
on
I think
kids.
having a conversation with kids where you just say, look, this is what this is. You know, you don't have to explain the actual meaning of the word to them, but just say, like, look, this is a word that is being used here in this context for emphasis, and it's not a word you should use in your day-to-day life. Like, I think kids are generally smart enough to understand that conversation, but that's my impression.
I'm a bad parent. I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna preface this with saying that I'm a bad parent because like, just to know where I'm coming from. Like, I would not let my kid listen to like the clean version of Kendrick Lamar. I was like, no, you're not listening to the clean version. Like, you're gonna listen to the real version. Like, he wrote it this way. The artist did it this way. We're listening to the real version, right? And that's when he was like in first grade. I don't I don't have a hang up about language, and maybe that's a personal thing for me. I mean, I do speak with I do I do talk like that. I was in the Navy. It's a big part of like Navy culture. People swear. I try not to do it like too much, but I just don't care. Language doesn't bother me. Now there's certain words. I'm not going to tell you what they are. I'm sure you can imagine. There are certain words we don't say. There's certain words I don't say, and I don't think that would be anybody would argue with those particular words. The F word is not among them. It's a great word. It's the most versatile word in the English language. But the thing is like my kid. I mean, he's like 15, almost 15 now, and he doesn't talk like that. And I even make fun of him for being afraid to cuss because, like I said, I'm a bad parent. But I don't know. I've learned to like trust kids to know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I've never like centered myself around my kid. I don't, from when he was, I've never, been a person to like watch my mouth around the kids. I talk how I talk, and for better or worse, I don't know. Maybe I'm lucky my kid didn't pick it up, but like I said, bad parent.
Well,
Eric, what about you?
I feel that any sporting event you go to, you're going to hear some of that language. Maybe not from a whole section chanting it a couple of times a game, but I guarantee you are going to hear some cursing at any sporting event you go to.
If you sit close to the field, you're going to hear it from the players.
100%.
Exactly. Or the coaches. Yeah. I feel like maybe 3 times was a bit too much to use it in that game. Usually we use it once, maybe twice.
It's like a first half and a second half. Normally it's twice.
Yeah.
Once in the first half, once in the second half.
But we really couldn't hear anything.
There was like really 5 of them.
There was nothing.
I mean,
it's not like Dolly
very
that
difficult
we do
to hear them
10 times a game.
So I understand, being a parent, I understand that people don't want to, expose their children to that sort of language in some cases. But like I said, if you're taking them to a sporting event and you're around the general public in that kind of environment, it's going to happen regardless. So while I understand that point of view, I don't think that you can actually have that expectation when you attend a match like that. And again, this word is not being used in a derogatory manner. It's being used for emphasis.
I mean, who was the fans that
context?
Who are the fans in England? This was just a couple of weeks ago. So didn't Man U have a player that got in trouble for sexual assault, for rape? And the fans were had a song, she said no, like they had a song like, I mean, if you go to a Man U match, you go to Man City, you go to any of these Premier League matches, I would imagine you're going to hear some language that you might find objectionable.
You're right, but to be fair, the English do something, so it's okay is not necessarily the best argument.
No, because there's some really bad chants in English.
Well, these are
The
the biggest
English
clubs.
are the
These are the
English.
biggest clubs in the world. This is the biggest
No,
league
true,
in the
true.
world, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm
Right.
not saying we should model ourselves after the English fans. I'm not, I wouldn't, start a riot, or I would not throw a bag of urine at anybody. But like, there's a lot worse things in soccer supporter culture or ultras culture, in other parts of the world that are far worse than a little colorful language. I think is my
Yeah,
point.
if that's the biggest complaint about us as a supporters group, I'm happy to take that we use the F word 4 to 6 times a match.
I think Eric makes a good point there that if that's the worst thing you can say, then we're doing all right. And I also want to say too, and I understand that this is not like a perfect solution, but I sit in 108 usually, like I said, and so right next to the supporters section. And from right next to the supporters section, it's pretty easy for me to talk over the line where you all swear. If for whatever reason I think there's somebody who doesn't want to hear that. I remember one time there was a guy who had been asking me a lot of questions about the game, and he seemed really interested, but he also seemed very conservative. So I was like, I don't want to hear this. I don't want this guy to hear us swearing, right? So I made a point to talk over it every time, and it was super easy. And I'm in the section next to the supporter section. So again, I recognize it's not like the best solution, but if you're really just committed to drowning it out, it's totally doable.
So nobody's ever complained about us having together drinking beer in a chant, and I'd argue that alcoholism is a far worse problem in society than a word that you can say one time in a PG-13 film, but if you say it twice, it's rated R. So
Well,
I mean, that's where we're
I
at.
will say I think Sal and Jack Cronin also know our chants, because I noticed you could hear it and they knew when to pause, so you could hear that line very clearly on the broadcast.
Yes.
I was pretty impressed by that.
I know that you could hear it last year at Orange County, the away match.
That's because that stadium's so quiet.
Came through on the broad. That was, I think I did not make that one, but very funny. And it's just one of those things. Not everybody's going to be happy with everything you do, but like at the end of the day, like it's a supporters group. It's not a daycare. It's not a kindergarten. It's grown people doing grown people stuff. It is family friendly, as long as you can tolerate swearing and drinking beer, because people drink beer in the section as well. So, that's kind of, it's grown folks stuff. It's soccer. It's a competitive sport. It's a robust, energetic environment in the stadium. We strive to create that culture in the stadium. Supporter culture is not for everybody. If there's a lot of seats in the stadium that are not in the supporter section. I'd wager that most of the seats are not in the supporter section, and it's not for everybody. That's a fact. It's not for everybody, and in fact it's not for most people. Or the supporter section would be the whole stadium, and there'd be one little section of people sitting down watching their mouths. But there's not. There's one section where we do that, and the rest of the stadium, you can take a nap in if you'd like. But that's not going to be this section. That's not going to be what we do, and I think that's the right way to manage a supporters group, is to really go at it, and to go at it all game.
I just personally would like to make sure when we go at it all game, it's in support of our team, right? To not get into some of the things we do hear other supporter groups do that excluding the chant we're talking about, but just that we are always, when we're singing and chanting, it's directed towards our club, our players, our team, trying to support them. We are supporters rather than attack anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a very good job of that over the years. I don't think that has been an issue at all. I would just like to make sure that we always keep that course, because I think that's what kept us going through that LA Galaxy 2 game we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
It didn't devolve into attacking the LA team. We stayed the course supporting our team all the way through for 90 minutes. Koke noticed it.
Actually,
He mentioned it. We noticed his words about it. I think those are the things that I would really like to make sure that for those 90 minutes, that's who our energy is focused on.
absolutely. And if you remember that 5-0 loss to LA Galaxy 2 when Preston Jed scored his goal, a person sitting in the general section was photographed on Twitter giving him the double bird, which, you know, that's not even in the supporters group. And that's happening there. Further making my point that you're gonna see it there, right? And it was, from what I remember, it was an elderly lady with gray hair who was showing
The best. You love it.
which it was amazing.
I think part of it is just like because like John said before, like there hasn't been, professional soccer or outdoor soccer in San Diego. So I think it's new to, it was new to me, the supporter culture. It's new to everybody. And I think that as fans come to the game, it's new to them, right? Drumming and chanting for the whole game. That doesn't happen at wave matches. That happens at loyal matches. And so, it's something that everybody is learning to live with and learn to kind of enjoy. And I think that as we go on in the years, it'll just become. I don't think if you go to a Timbers match up in Portland and hear some of this stuff, like anybody's going to bat an eye. They've been doing it for a long time.
Obviously, we want to be all inclusive, and it's not like we want to say, well, if you don't like it, go to a wave match. But it's just something that you need to expect is going to happen when you go to a sporting event, I think.
I'm sure there's people at wave matches, yelling. I feel like this sport, unlike some of the other sports, like the level of decorum expected in the stands, it may not be, I'm not saying it's lower, it's just different. It's a different, the relationship the supporters and the fans have with the match in front of them. It's just different than the other sports. It's way different than baseball.
It's different than baseball in America. Just to be clear, I think the World Baseball Classic has definitively demonstrated that it's America who is boring baseball fans.
Yeah.
I wanted to say though, first of all, to your point about the Portland Timbers, yes, their supporters swear. I've sat in with the Timbers Army. Incredible time. Highly recommended if you're a soccer fan in America. Providence Park is incredible. But I wanted to jump back to something John said about the supporters supporting the team rather than talking about the other team. I've had conversations with people about this, Nick Duffy, our Capo star included, about how the energy should be spent towards supporting the team, right? And I do want to point out too, because I think in the conversation about the San Diego "We Are Here" chant, this conversation often centers around the line about not hearing a fucking thing. But that's only a third of the chant. The other 2/3 of the chant are supporting the team, right? Like, we are the Tory Green, we're the best you've ever seen. San Diego, we are here to sing some songs and drink some beer. Like, I totally understand the apprehension about the usage of certain words, but I guess what I'm trying to say is the point about wanting the energy to go towards supporting the team totally resonates with me. This is probably my hottest Padres supporters take, but I think the "Beat LA" chant is lame as shit. A bunch of fan bases use it. It's about another team. Why are we singing about LA? I don't like LA. I digress. Anyway, I totally resonate with the idea of supporting the team, but I want people to remember that the San Diego "We Are Here" chant, while it has generated some conversation, is first and foremost, at the very least, 66.66 repeating percent in support of the team. So, sorry, that was my piece. I've been holding that in for a bit.
I would argue that it's actually 100% because we're so loud. That is why we can't hear a fucking thing.
Exactly. We've made ourselves deaf because we're so loud.
And I think people who have been around soccer supporter culture for a while and know that chant, because it's not our chant. That chant has been
Mm-hmm.
around with lots of clubs and lots of teams. It really is a bit at like step up your game, to
Yeah.
the other group. It is a little bit needling, but it's like, and frequently teams do it. Like I noticed someone said in the chat that we did it, maybe it was overused, but it got used after each goal. That's when it got used. And that's typically for a lot of teams when they use it because, as we've talked about before, like Guido's goal in Phoenix, you can hear a pin drop. Like the rest of the crowd or the crowd for that team, when they get scored upon, usually goes silent, which is not something we do, right? We keep going. But the team goes silent, and that's usually when the other supporters kind of take advantage and throw that chant out like okay, like we don't hear you now. So, it's kind of, I think, understanding the overall context. And I certainly get the apprehension with kids with the language, but it's one of those that while I do always say I think everything should be directed towards our team, that one, maybe I'm kind of going against what I say a little bit, but I'm that one kind of just rides the fence a little bit for me. I'm okay with that one.
It's just fun
Overall,
to
the whole
yell the F word
context.
in a huge group of people. I just highly recommend it to anybody if you haven't
Yup.
done it yet.
It's very cathartic.
This is true. This is true.
All right, and there is a video on floating around the socials of that line in the chant. If you search it out on, I think the locals shared it. I know I saw it in the Discord. I want to remind people, if you are still listening in the chat and you're not in the Discord, please get in the Discord. This is where all of these conversations happen 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're all in there more than we should be. And if you are a locals member that is full paid or a free member, you do get Discord access. I know I do occasionally see posts on Facebook once a week when I open Facebook. So I know there are still people trying to communicate in the Facebook group. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what y'all are doing. I don't know what you're doing on Facebook. I don't know who you're talking to in that group. I know it exists because I'm in there, but come on, get in the Discord. It's much. I mean, yeah, of course, ideally we should be on all channels, but listen, it's all happening in Discord. Please, come on into the Discord and join the conversation. I know we're over an hour. I don't think we have any more burning topics. I'm going to try to wrap things up. If you listen to this podcast and you did not listen to the Loyal Locals podcast, it is a much more focused, goal-driven podcast where we impart valuable information about match times and events. So please, if you're listening to this on your feed, take the time to listen to that podcast as well and find out what's going on. Dylan, once again, where can people find you?
The best place to find me, other than Discord, which again, you should be on the Discord if you're still watching at this point, is on Twitter at DWIL, DWIL94. That is while Twitter is still a thing. I do want to say real quick though, while I'm talking, I do on the topic of just kind of the lounge and how we've gone way over time here. I really, really appreciated the conversation we had about how everybody got into supporting San Diego Loyal and got into the locals. I thought that was an awesome bit of just like raw human interaction. I super appreciated that. So thank you all for that. That was a lot of fun. And to build on that, I wanted to say, if you're deep into this, if you're this deep into the podcast, you obviously are super in the local sphere. We are working on another show that will hopefully be coming maybe next week. Not 100%, still kind of in the works, but where we're going to interview locals members and kind of get their story about how they got involved with the locals and how they came to support San Diego Loyal and how they got into soccer. So we're working on getting some people for that, getting some hosts. So keep an eye out for that on your feed. It's still in the works, but I think that's going to be a good one. I'm very excited about it. So I just wanted to give that a quick plug while I had the floor. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. That'll be awesome. Looking forward to that. Eric, where can folks find you, sir?
So I'm in the Discord at Eric Wilke or on the Twitter at Eric D. Wilke. So either one.
And John, where can people find you, sir?
Also in the Discord at John Cross, and I want to thank Dylan for everything he said because I was going to say something similar. So thank you for saving me the time.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, it was great. I'm always interested to hear how people get into this and how you get into this super weird hobby that we all have. That's so much fun, and I always struggle to explain it to people who don't get it and don't know what we're doing. So it's awesome to hear everyone's stories. So yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm Andrew Dyer. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew P. Dyer. I'll be here next week. I don't know who is joining us, but join John and I next Tuesday once again as we give you the latest from the supporter group. Thank you so much.